Let's talk about pivot points in Blender's Sculpt mode. One way that I wanted to demonstrate pivot points in Sculpt mode is to try bending these limbs in the nicest way we can, because you'll notice that they are just one solid object. So if we wanted to bend this arm straight, it would be quite difficult in Sculpt mode. If we were to try and use the snake hook, for example, or, well, just any of the brushes really. If we wanted the arm to be more straight, then we would need to rotate part of the arm. What we want to do first is mask out half of the arm. So if I hold Control Shift and then left click and drag, I can make a selection to the elbow there. And then if you press the A key, there's the mask menu. Because what we've done is just masked out part of the arm. And you'll notice there is a smooth mask option. Look a little bit closer, you can see how it's smoothed the edge of the mask. And this will mean when we do bend the arm, the transition won't be as sharp on the bend. So I've actually got smooth mask set to a hotkey on my keyboard. And if we go to the mask menu here and right click on smooth mask, you can set the shortcut for that. I've got mine set to shift and comma. So if I press that a couple of times, you can see that the mask is a lot smoother. Then go back into object mode. You can see this point here is the object's origin, and that is where it's currently rotating around, and we want it around this elbow here. If we go up to the sculpt menu here and then go to set pivot, there's several different options. What we want for this particular case is to pivot to the surface under the cursor. You can press this option. It's not going to work correctly because you need to have your mouse hovered over the area that you want to set the pivot point to. We go to sculpt again, set pivot, and if you right click on pivot to under the cursor and set a shortcut, I've got mine set to right alt and P. If we hover over around about where the elbow would be, hit right alt and P, and now that has set the pivot point to where the elbow is. And now if we hit the R key, you can see how we're getting a nice smooth bend. It's also in the position that we would want it to be in. So we can make the arm a little bit more open. If we change the camera to here, we can bend it in a little bit, and you'll see when we clear the mask, if you press A, you've got clear mask here. I've just got it set to a shortcut on my keyboard, and you'll notice there are some issues with the bend just around the elbow and things, so we can tidy that up. I just remesh, and then I use the lace strips and smooth as well. You can just tidy up those bits. There we go. And ideally, you'd want to spend a bit more time on that to make sure that it's correct. And we could do a similar thing with the wrist. So if we control shift and drag, we get a mask on there. Then if we flip the mask, press A again, invert mask it's called. Then we can make another selection, clean up the selection. And then we find where the wrist is. So I would say about here. To under the cursor, and then we can smooth the mesh again, and then we can rotate it on the wrist. And that's a little bit more tricky because of the armor here, but you get the general idea of how you can bend a limb. So if I go to the leg here, we can talk about the other pivot options. So once we've masked out an area, smooth it a little bit, set the pivot to unmask, you'll see that the center point is just the unmasked area. And then if we go to pivot to mask border, that is going to put the pivot point centrally to the mask border. So that's quite useful for quickly setting pivot point. But for something like this, the knee would be more in this position. So I find under the cursor is more accurate for this kind of thing. So we've got pivot to active vertex as well. And I don't really find much use for this because that's pretty much the same as under the cursor actually. Yeah. So I'm not sure about that. So into solo mode with this one, and we do a mask select. We're careful just to get the elbow part of the arm. Do a couple of smooths again, and then pivot under the cursor. We can bend this arm outwards. And when we press R, we can press R twice, and that will do like a free rotate. But this might be better to the border. I set it to the border. You can see how I can twist the arm. It's going to need tidying up once you've done the bend, but it's a really quick way to repose meshes like this. Thanks for checking out the video, and hopefully you were able to take something away from this for your own projects. Don't forget to check out my Gumroad, where I have various models and sculpting resources for download. And if you're interested in supporting the channel more directly, you can check out my Patreon, just like these guys did. And I'll see you all in the next video.